he's crafting here, and it is entirely directed at John Roberts and no one else to fucking whip him into line, because it was very clear that what Roberts wants to do is sort of like split the baby and be the author of, you know, a 6-3 decision rather than, you know, a dissent in a 5-4 decision. And like I said, if you read that the draft, the Alito draft, it's all very clear, like the roadmap that they're laying out. And you know, and it's not going to stop at just like quote unquote social issues like women's rights or gay rights or contraception. Matt, as you said, like Texas is already considering challenging a law mandating that states have to provide public education for its citizens. I mean, like this is like I said, anything that there is nothing that is too far anymore. There is nothing that you can take for granted about what you thought was like established law or culture in this country. They're going to do it all, and like that means like, you know, what they've wanted to do for over 100 years, which is roll back, you know, basically the post-New Deal state to a Gilded Age sort of social and economic relations.
I think,
and it's all it's all coming
at the federal level. Yeah, there's nothing that can really stop any of this, but there is going to be a pushback, and it's going to be at the state level. I mean, the blue states are essentially going to rediscover the beauty of federalism and are going to refuse to enforce federal legislation. And I don't think that's going to lead to a civil war. I think it's going to lead to a de facto situation where we've returned to sort of the pre-Civil War concept of states as like relatively autonomous in terms of, you know, the legal regime within them. And then like interstate commerce and supply chain and all that stuff will be managed essentially algorithmically, as it already is, and taken out of politics, and that politics will return entirely to the states, and people will be able to vote with their feet if they can afford to, and if they can't, then they're stuck wherever under whichever regime they happen to have been born into.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like the true holders of consequence here, both for Roe v. Wade, for anything that is coming for this entire situation, is, as always, it's going to be the poorest people, the people who already cannot afford to move. I mean, any restriction of abortion, it hurts poor women the most in every way. They're the ones going to prison for having miscarriages. They're the ones who will be forced to die during childbirth. And in the coming reality, the coming American divorce, they will be the ones who will, you know, live and die in the free state of Texas or the kingdom of Missouri.
I mean, I like, obviously, like states like New York and California will be, you know, upholding the right to an abortion, and I would expect them not to respect the wishes of a state like, you know, I don't know, Missouri or Texas. But I mean, how much, like, how long is that going to go on before they just do a federal abortion ban? Like, I mean, like I said, like, do you think the right is going to be? Do you think the conservative legal movement and the conservative political movement? You think they're going to be happy with two of America's biggest states thumbing their nose at like, you know, or like refusing to prosecute people who crossed into their border to obtain Plan B, or order it from those states, or obtain an abortion in those states? Like I said,
I mean,
like,
yeah. Like for now, you can order abortion pills like that are made in India. They're licensed by a company in Europe. They're sent through the U.S. Postal Service, and they have no way of enforcing like a ban on abortion pills currently if it's sent through the USPS. How long do you expect that to stay over the next like 10, 20 years? Because I don't really know. It's part of the looming crisis, but I don't really know.
Like I said, like whether it is in 5 or 20 years, it's hard to say, but I think we can pretty much guarantee that if the Supreme Court is allowed to maintain its current authority over our society, that the gay rights and the rights to contraception and a host of other, you know, rights that may not be deeply rooted in American traditions, as Justice Alito would have you believe, but nonetheless ones in which everyone listening to this program has enjoyed their entire life on this planet, are going to be taken away. It's as simple as that. And I don't know if this happens in a deluge or in a drip, but like we cannot assume that it won't happen. And like Felix, I'm glad you brought up the point about like the women being prosecuted for their miscarriages, because, you know, again, this is the kind of thing that the reasonable Republicans and centrist pundits have assured us for years is it would never happen. But since Roe v. Wade was passed, 1,600 women in this country have been prosecuted for conduct leading up to a miscarriage. Of those 1,600 women, 1,200 of them were prosecuted since 2006. And I'm just looking right now at several examples from just the last year or two of women who are being charged and convicted of manslaughter for having a miscarriage. There's a case in Alabama of a pregnant woman who was shot in the stomach when she was 5 months pregnant during an altercation with a coworker. The coworker fired on her, and because of Alabama's stand your ground law, the coworker wasn't charged with the death of the fetus, but the woman who was shot was. This was the state ultimately dropped these charges, but this was after significant political backlash. It was a sort of public outcry over it. There is in Missouri. There's the case of a woman named Brittany Pulaw, who is a 21-year-old Comanche woman from Oklahoma who was arrested and convicted of manslaughter for the death of her 17-week-old fetus. And the cause of death was attributed to speculation that she was a drug user. And if you don't think that, if you like I said, and now in Texas with like vigilantes being empowered to collect bounties on women who seek abortions out of state, now under this legal regime, every miscarriage or every problem with a pregnancy will be like cause for a homicide or manslaughter investigation.
And this will always be enshrined in the platforms of the American right in this country. There can never be a compromise on this issue. There is no room for any fucking compromise on this issue because it is a way to use the law to punish and rape women. Whether you are physically doing that or doing that through the law, doing it through the statutes of this country, it is a way for men to violate women, and it is never going to go away from the American right. It is always going to be a facet, and there is no grand deal you can strike on any of this. It will always tilt towards this.
I mean, nor can there be any accommodations made towards sort of finagling over what trimester counts as like a fetus or an embryo or whatever. Just anyone who's still doing that right now is just dismiss them out of hand completely. There is absolutely, like I said, that's what's so funny about all this whining over the leak is that these people have now just secured for themselves probably the biggest W that has been on their agenda for decades, and they're still fucking complaining about it. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, is it just the odd thing to me was I thought well, obviously it's incumbent upon them to always put up a united front in which no matter what happens, they're the ones being treated unfairly and being a victim. But it's sort of I wonder is this just a hangover of politics as it used to be? Because I don't understand why they care about the optics or unpopularity of anything they do anymore.
I think it's vestigial, and it's also these people all hang around with people who are pro-choice. It's about their social circle more than anything.
Right. No, I don't think there's any actual political function to it. It's just the only people actually doing the complaining about the leak are the more normal ones who do, traffic in circles that have some pro-choice people. I think for the less normal ones who are talking about it, it's just it's an opportunity to ruin someone's life, and that's the aspect they like about it, that they can find the leaker and was sort of Will Berkman-esque manhunt.
Just a little context here about how much life is respected in America. I was just looking at these statistics here about maternal mortality in America, and the most recent figures as of 2020 have it at 161 deaths of women who died in childbirth in the United States. That's about 23.8 deaths for every 100,000 live births, and basically that would put us, according to the World Health Organization, just behind Russia and one ahead of Ukraine in terms of global maternal mortality rates. So we are officially worse than Russia when it comes to women dying from giving childbirth.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder if some of the policy utility for this is maybe people realizing that younger people are not having kids, but this is I don't think that's going to do anything, right? Because abortion has already been effectively illegal in over half the country. Presumably some things are going to stay the same in most blue states, and the fundamental factors that cause infant mortality or cause people just to not have kids outright in the first place are still as they are.
I do think it's funny that Samuel Alito, I mean, he wrote this opinion, but his real passion on the bench since he's been there has been defending the death penalty at all costs. It's like the one thing he gets like really fired up about. Like he's written some like super pissed dissents when they decide not to execute somebody. You get just his whole thing is just getting hard for murdering people.
Like I said, I mean, I think that lays bare the like I said, this is the motivation of the now dominant, now the completely uncontested political force for ruling law in this country. This is what they believe in. There's no shading it. You can't lie to yourself about like, oh, they don't really mean this. No, they do, and they're going to do it. This is just like unspeakably horrible because we all have to face the fact that like we live at their fucking whims, and like I don't know the answer to that. Like it's just like, yes, like you can elect better politicians, you can protest, and I'm like I'm for all of those things. I don't want to say like, you know, give up hope or whatever, but like it's a moment where really all the options available to us or anything I can say or anything we can do seem totally inadequate. And like, you know, I just like I said, I think I don't know, admitting that first is a good first step.
Yeah, well, I think in the coming years, it'll be a test for a lot of people, for people who are, you know, not subject to these laws, as we are, you know, safely in New York or California. It will be a test if you are willing to break the law. Are you willing to, you know, do things that are illegal, like set up a proxy PO box for women to traffic abortion pills at the states that outright outlaw them, to do things that may get you prosecuted if you step foot into a state like Texas? And I hope that all of us, everyone listening, all of us personally, if it comes to that, can act bravely.
Yeah, and like, you know, like you know, it's like the old cliche about bravery is that, you know, courage is something you discover after you do the thing that you're scared shitless of. But like, you know, bravery to like, you know, personally and collectively stand up to these monsters and the power that they have over your life to take away everything from you, your dignity, your rights, your livelihood, no matter what. Like bravery is what's left to us. And to reiterate what I said, you know, in the last 2 or 3 shows, bravery is a lot easier when you're with other people.
Absolutely.
I suspect we'll have a lot more thoughts on this in future episodes, but I think for today, I think we'd like to. I guess like there is actually a segue here, awkward as it may seem, to talk about something not so you know, soul crushingly bleak and terrible. But let's talk about what's going on with Madison Cawthorn, because I think this is an instructive example about like, you know, okay, well, why can't the Democrats do anything about enshrining abortion rights at a federal level? Well, it's largely because of 2 senators in their own party that have made it openly their mission to tank any part of the Democratic legislative agenda. So in a normally functioning party, these people would be dealt with similar to the way the GOP is dealing with Madison Cawthorn right now, because oh my, they are massacring my boy right now.
Look at how they massacred my boy.
And here's the interesting thing, though. What if they do all this shit and leak every fucking video he's ever done of him face fucking his cousin while grunting like an ape, and the North Carolina voters still reelect him?
I mean,
honestly, if right now I'd put money on that being the outcome, because like he's getting a high profile. People recognize his name now, and he can always say, as he has been saying, you know, that the deep state is trying to silence him. And how do you know? Nothing is real unless you decide it is. Why does what they say mean anything if you don't want it to?
I also think that probably a high proportion of voters, both in his district and in the entire state, have experienced that. They have been held down and forced to come by their wheelchair-bound cousin. They have,
Okay.
They have like they know, like, the simple fact of boys will be boys, of fellas hanging out. If your slime hasn't sucked you off by force, is that really your friend? Is that really the guy you trust with your life on a hunting trip?
All right. Well, let's talk about the latest. I'm gonna go through the whole timeline of everything that's come out about Madison Cawthorn, because they're just like, they're unloading the Jesse Ventura Gatling gun from Predator on this guy. I mean, like, Like he's getting lit up right now. I mean, like what again, like, and this is a test case for the Republicans to see, like, how much these old mechanisms of party discipline still function anymore. Because, like I said, like if the Democrats were anything like their political party, like we would have already seen videos of Joe Manchin like sucking off someone in a bear costume at the Overlook Hotel.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, this is not him going against the party on any issue of policy. This is him blowing up their spot on the baby sex festivals. That's like that's a red line. That is showing that he cannot be trusted. Forget policy. Who gives a shit about policy? You can't like relax and just talk with your fellow congressman. Then it's like he's like Serpico basically. You can't have him around.
Any guy not on the take is you can't trust. Can we talk about the video itself though?
Okay, that video is awesome. That video, man. Okay, look, we're talking about how like everyone's response to